Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's call. And I'm so glad today to be joined by Senator Duckworth. She brings her own personal experience with this issue to the call today, and her experience as a veteran and a mother to the Senate every day. And I so appreciate it. We also have Alexis and Rodolfo from my home state of Washington, who were denied IVF treatment by the VA, as well as Ellen, who is a staunch advocate for military families and a mom via IVF herself. Thank you all so much for being here today. We'll also be hearing from Representative Larson, who unfortunately cannot join us live, but he's been a longtime partner in this fight. You know, as a country, we make a promise to every service member in return for your service to our country. When you come home, we will take care of you. But you know what? For too many veterans, we have failed to live up to our end of the bargain. During the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, we have seen thousands of service members, like Senator Duckworth, who put their lives on the line to protect our country, sustain injuries that prevent them from conceiving naturally. And for the past nearly 30 years, instead of doing all we can to help them start a family when they finish their service, the VA has been banned from covering the costs of many necessary fertility services. And that is completely unacceptable. You know, as the daughter of a World War II veteran who dealt with medical issues after his service, I know how important the VA medical care, not just for veterans, but also for their families. So veterans with injuries they sustained during their service being denied fertility treatment and then being forced to bear the expensive cost of treatment themselves if they want to start a family is just not okay. I first introduced a bill to end the ban on fertility treatment back in 2011 when I was chair of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, and I've continued to fight for it for the past 10 years. I'm proud to say we've made some progress on this. We expanded access to fertility treatments for some veterans temporarily, and we've gotten bipartisan support on previous bills and amendments to expand IVF access. But this bill that we are introducing here today would finally and permanently repeal the VA ban on IVF and get all of our veterans the access to fertility and IVF services through the VA they earned. That is what we really need to do once and for all. We've come so close before, and right now, this Congress, we are closer than ever to being able to get this done. We've got a lot of incredible leaders and advocates on this call who I mentioned at the start of my remarks, but I also really want to take a moment to acknowledge the advocacy of veterans themselves, in particular women veterans, who stood up and said, I'm going to fix this not just for myself, but for all other families as well. And I am honored to be in this fight alongside each and every one of you. So with that, let me turn it over to my friend, Senator Tammy Duckworth. And thanks again so much, Tammy, for your leadership.
Thank you, Senator Murray. It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me and for your tireless work for years now on behalf of veteran parents to be around this country. These folks are struggling with infertility. They have dreams of starting a family that can only be achieved through IVF or other similar innovations. I'm here today to talk about veterans who want to use assistive reproductive technology to have children and start their families, but just can't afford it. Servicemen and women are often faced with the choice of pursuing these treatments before leaving service or paying tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket later. And as many of you know, I would not be a mother today without the miracle of IVF. And like so many other veterans who gave up their fertile years, especially female veterans, to serve our nation and often sustained injuries during their service that left them unable to conceive naturally, I had to pay tens of thousands of dollars for IVF out of pocket because it is not covered by the Department of Veterans Affairs. As the number of women volunteering to serve our nation continues to rise, it's critical that we modernize our healthcare system to meet their unique needs. We also have had so many veterans lose their reproductive organs, especially in landmine incidents in Afghanistan. This bill, the Veterans Family Health Services Act, helps meet that goal by expanding current fertility treatment and counseling offerings at the VA and empowering severely injured veterans to start families when the time is right for them. We must do everything we can to make sure our veterans receive the care and benefits they have earned, and that includes helping them fulfill their dreams of having a family. I look forward to working with Senator Murray and my good friend, Representative Rick Larson, to pass this important legislation and send it to President Biden's desk. Thank you again for having me. And with that, we're going to hear from Representative Larson.
Well, thank you. I am pleased to join Senator Murray and Senator Duckworth to mark the introduction of the bicameral Veteran Family Health Services Act. I'm U.S. Representative Rick Larson, a senior member of the U.S. House of Representatives Armed Services Committee and the House sponsor of this critical legislation. Now, when veterans transition to civilian life, they often find that despite advances in reproductive medicine, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or the VA, is now authorized to provide care necessary to start a family. The Veteran Family Health Services Act bridges this inequity by expanding access to assisted reproductive technology for women and men in uniform. It also takes the long overdue step of permanently overturning the 1992 law banning the VA from funding in vitro fertilization services, or IVF services. The bill also eliminates hurdles to accessing expanded reproductive care by making veterans and service members' spouses, partners, and gestational surrogates also eligible for these services. It's time for Congress to act and to pass this bill into law. And I'll continue working to expand reproductive care for the women and men in the military and for veterans. I look forward to seeing Congress pass this legislation to put service members and veterans one step closer to their dreams of having a family. And so once again, thank you for having me here today.
Great, and now we'll hear from Ellengustafen, co-founder of the Military Family Building Organization.
Thank you, Amir, and thank you, Senator Murray, Senator Duckworth, and Representative Larson for your leadership. When I've spoken to my fellow military families and my civilian friends about these issues, I tell them it will literally take an act of Congress to change military families' policy so that they can have the families that they hope for. And here we are. We're so excited. My story, like that of many other military families, includes a mix of training trips, deployments, and moves that make the current language in TRICARE policy of not covering non-coital reproductive procedures an insult and an injury. Military families are physically separated by the nature of their service, along with having job-related fertility challenges. So to have an official policy that doesn't support full reproductive care is explicitly hurting us. If 1 in 8 couples in the general public struggle with infertility and 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, military numbers are just equal to that. There's a problem that warrants attention and care. While my husband was in the middle of his first combat deployment, our first pregnancy of our very wanted baby boy ended in stillbirth. The cause was unknown, but it was linked to a 5-generation mystery in male fetal death. As I was in labor with the still baby and on a crackly phone line with my husband, all the doctors who were treating me said the same thing. To avoid another male loss, we recommend IVF and genetic testing so that you know you're implanting a female embryo. This is all possible with medical treatments that exist today, but it's not covered by TRICARE. We began a self-funded 6 IVF cycle journey to parenthood, and even though my specific medical needs were unique, my infertility in the military experience is not. During the next 3 years, my husband was gone about 70% of the time. I self-administered countless injections, had failed IVF cycles while bringing meal-trained dinners to families of fallen warriors, and had a lot of anger and about the inconsistency between America's talk of supporting the troops and my completely unsupported family building process. Thank you for your service doesn't square up with, but we won't help you with the medical care you need to have children. In the end, we were successful and are now the parents of 3, but at a tremendous personal cost in dollars, time, and pain. And we are the lucky ones. My whole income was used to pay for our treatments, and other families aren't so lucky. Military families are suffering in silence. They're in private Facebook groups and they're whispering at spouse dinners, all due to the limitations of care and the lack of coverage under current TRICARE policy. This need led Katie Bell Hendrickson and I to co-found the Military Family Building Coalition, the first organization of its kind with the goals of educating active duty service members and the American public, supporting current needs, and pushing for policy change. We've built a broad coalition of military family organizations to support our platform. And just today, our partners at Blue Star Families have launched their 2021 Military Family Lifestyle Survey, which for the first time includes family building questions. 70% of those currently serving come from military families. We need our military to have children so we can continue to recruit an all-volunteer force. And we need to retain our skilled servicemen and women and give them the available tools so they are not choosing between having children and continuing to serve. We call on this 117th Congress to act and pass this bill to truly support the force of today and the force of the future. The time is now. We hope that this and future generations of active duty and veteran families will not have to seek out benevolent organizations like ours or find military discounts to have children. Active duty service members deserve more patriotic policies that support us in this most important act, growing our families. I'd now like to turn it over to Alexis and Rodolfo to hear their story.
Thank you, Ellen. Our journey as a couple encompasses both of equality to achieve the pursuit of happiness and the realities that same opportunities are not afforded to everyone. Good afternoon, my name is Rodolfo Taylor, and this is my wife, Alexis. We live in Seattle, Washington. First and foremost, we'd like to thank Senator Duckworth for her heroism for our country and her bravery to share her story and struggles. It provides hope to couples like my wife and I as we struggle to make the family we envision a reality. We'd also like to thank our great Senator Patty Murray for her decades-long dedication to our military and veteran families as well. There are many times in my life that I felt that the country I fought and bled for didn't care whether I existed. I'm grateful for the leaders like Senator Murray that never leave us behind. My family's journey started in the Philippines. Our journey to America was not easy. I came to the mainland with my father when I was 3 years old. My mother had to stay back in the Philippines along with my brother. We sacrificed our family unity for the American dream. As an Asian American man in the harsh streets of Brooklyn, New York during the 70s and 80s, I had to learn how to deal with and make my way in a world of Asian hate due to the Vietnam War. Even though we were not Vietnamese ourselves and living to make a way out of poverty. I learned from my mother the value of hard work and education. She became a nurse at the age of 40 and provided a good life for my brother and I after my father died when I was 12. In fact, I enlisted in the Army to relieve my mother from the burden of higher education. I did finish my undergraduate degree, but was strapped with enormous educational debt. While you sign up with the chances of war, no one is prepared for such a sacrifice. My brigade, like many others, was deployed to Afghanistan out of Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State. And I have served with distinction until I was honorably discharged in 2007. Now, throughout that journey, I sustained mental and physical injuries and lost very dear friends. When I transitioned out of the military, I was left to a broken veteran system. While I was living in my car homeless in Tacoma, I worked 3 jobs. And it wasn't until I connected with Congressman Adam Smith that I received my VA benefits 13 months after transitioning. It should not take a congressional intervention to value the lives of those that serve.
Thank you, Ro, for all that you have done for our family and you do for this country. Our journey to expand our family has not been easy. While we live in a great state that values reproductive equity, our state does not require companies to cover infertility. We are working hard to make sure that the generations of our family are afforded the prosperity of the American dream. However, the financial burden of fertility is eroding our efforts and continuing the realities of the racial wealth gap for our family. To afford some of our fertility journey, I had to work at Starbucks as a barista, even though I have a law degree. While I am thankful for the support of a great company like Starbucks, I had to sacrifice my career and even my earning potential to access healthcare. We tried to access fertility coverage at the VA. After a failed IVF round and numerous IUIs, we were experts in assisted fertility. Luckily, we had the good fortune of our military and veteran friends that shared with us that the VA covered assisted fertility. But once again, The system was not there to support our journey. Our doctor did not know that such coverage existed. We had to educate her on the codes and diagnoses. And after months of advocacy, we were denied under the narrow interpretation of the benefit and lack of knowledge in the system of what is covered. Our hope to have our family without financial burden died. Our parents sacrificed out of the legacies of Jim Crow of my family and Rose's family of immigrating to this country to afford us a better life. Now we are faced with leveraging our home and taking on more debt for healthcare. The impacts of war are seen and unseen. I'm so proud of my husband and the sacrifices he made for our country and the honorable person he is for me, our family, friends, and community. We hope that Congress acts to support veteran families struggling to make their American dream a reality by passing the Veterans Families Health Service Act. Thank you.
And so now we have time for questions from reporters. So if you have a question for any of our participants, just use the raise hand function. You'll see that at the bottom of your screen under reactions, and we'll call on folks in the order that questions are asked. Seeing no raised hands, I will just flag if you're having trouble with that function, you can go ahead and unmute yourself if there are any questions. Seeing no questions, I will turn it back over to Senator Murray for her closing thoughts.
You'd think I'd know how to unmute after a year, sorry. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. I especially want to thank Adolfo and Alexis for sharing your personal journey, and to my counterpart, Tammy Baldwin, who's been through this herself and is just a fierce advocate, and Ellen for all you have done to help so many other people. I just feel like this is our year. We have been fighting for this for a long time, and as I shared before all the press was on, we're in our 9.5 month of pregnancy here. We're going to give birth. So we're going to get this done this year. It's so important. We need to make sure that the people who serve us receive the promise we give them is that we will be there to take care of them when they come home. And having a family is a critical part of these amazing people who've served our country's ability to be able to be who they need to be once they've served our country. And we thank you so much for that.